But anyway, I'm John Blackmon. I'm with ELB Learning, and I'm here to talk to you today about supporting today's workforce with rapid VR authoring. ELB Learning is a training company, been around through various companies for about 23 years now. And we pretty much have a lot of solutions for training, and we have a solution for VR authoring as well, a rapid VR authoring product called Scenario VR. All right. So first, let's go back to early traditional web-based learning. So in early web-based learning, the only way to really create anything interactive was to hand code it. You had to build it using Flash, HTML, things like that. And we created things that were okay at the time. It kind of looked like what you see here, not the best, but it was good for its time, and it did its job. In general, your non-interactive learning was all created via using PDFs or PowerPoints, unfortunately, just like it is today. But this gave rise to the rapid authoring tool movement, first about in the early 90s, kind of led by Lectora back in the day, because we realized that non-interactive learning really wasn't being consumed like we wanted it to. People weren't engaged. They weren't actually learning the material. They were just going through it, clicking through. So you found a lot of these. These days, you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody that's not using a rapid authoring tool if they're creating traditional learning. So we have some challenges now. We have a workforce that is much younger, right? So they are being constantly bombarded by social media, by gaming, by YouTube videos, streaming videos coming at them, all kinds of different social media. And that's the level they expect their learning to be now. They're looking for things that are just as engaging, that will capture their attention, that they can have by there at night. We have a new level that we need to rise to. So how do we rise to that level? And the pandemic has created a whole new challenge for us, because now a lot of these same learners that need that kind of really big engagement, they're home, learning in their underwear. So very important. You got to really keep these people engaged. I'm a great example of that. I went to an office every day for 30 years. During the pandemic, the lease came up on our office. Guess what? We don't have an office anymore. We never got that office again, so I don't go to the office. I sit here kind of like that at home. So how do you challenge it? You have all these people that need to be engaged. Now they're decentralized. They're all outside of the way. How do you handle it? How do you keep that engagement? I mean, one way is using some new technology, something that keeps it fresh, something like virtual reality, augmented reality, maybe AI or novel mobile technologies like geotagging or geofencing, those kind of things. It keeps it interesting, keeps it fresh. You keep that new generation looking at what you're creating. We at ELB Learning, we focus directly on virtual reality. We think that's the best way to really get it out there. So, talk about immersive training for a moment, if you're dealing in training at all. One of the good things about it is it gets 100% retention of the user's attention, because that guy is not checking his social media feed right now. There is just no way. He's busy, he is inside of your training, he is taking it and is engaged. The other thing that's important is retention rate. You've probably all heard of the forgetting curve. It's a very common thing, it's been around for many, many years. They talk about it really with general training. You're talking about after about 2 weeks, you remember 20% or less of everything you're being taught with traditional training. That's just a ridiculous. So I'm here giving this speech, you'll have no idea what I said in a couple of weeks. But with VR learning, you're talking about an 80% retention rate up to a year after training. And that's because of the way it works. It actually, great, I've got an update, good to know. 80% retention rate a year after training, and that's because you're stored in a different area in your brain. When you're actively participating in something, it is stored in an area of your brain that retains that longer. It's not in the temporary storage where every phone number I've ever gotten goes. It's also very engaging. Gamified immersive learning, it's stickier than other things. It gets people engaged, you get them using it, they might actually enjoy taking your training, which is something unusual. But most importantly, we like to say it gives you the freedom to fail. Mistakes made in virtual reality are not mistakes made in reality. So if during your training, you're training on some equipment that might actually shoot steam at them and burn their eyes, feel free to have that happen in virtual reality. It's okay, just as long as they don't do it in reality. So now let's take that into the VR-based learning. Lessons we've learned for, boy, it really wants me to have an update, doesn't it? All right, good to know. Early VR-based learning, it's been around for a while, and just like in traditional learning, early VR-based learning all had to be coded by hand. You had to go in there. The tools are different, Unity, Unreal, things like that, but you had to code everything by hand. You had to have a 3D designer on staff, you had to have programmers on staff, and you had to buy a headset for everybody that wanted to take that material. Kind of expensive, it's kind of hard to get out there and hard to distribute, so it didn't really take off as fast as it could have. Certainly effective, but a lot of reasons why it didn't happen. Just like in traditional authoring, there's a new way to do it now. Rapid VR authoring, tools like Scenario VR, and so it's absolutely changing the landscape of immersive learning now. Now you're seeing immersive learning being rolled out to more and more companies. We've had sales double 2 years in a row going forth. There's a lot of things going on with immersive learning because you can create it much easier than you have it in the past. So you can now create it easier. What about getting it out of people? Well, you have a lot of different ways to get that content out of people. You can host it on the Scenario VR, on the hosting platform. You can use it from the web, you can use it from phones, you can use it from tablets, as well as headsets. We support 13 different headsets. You can actually host VR learning on your LMS now. You can actually put it on your LMS in a SCORM format. If you use a browser inside of a headset, you can actually, the content is intelligent, it recognizes it's in a headset, puts up a goggles icon, goes into full VR. Imagine using your LMS for true virtual reality. You can actually even host it on your website. So a lot of people want to put a small immersive experience on their website. You can publish out to HTML5 and put it on your website. And you can actually even embed it in traditional courses. One of the things we've seen are kind of a hybrid use of it, where you publish out a traditional course and then you just have a small immersive piece, something that needs to exercise the spatial awareness that somebody's using. You can actually do that by just adding a web window of immersive content and kind of have a hybrid course. So these are all reasons why it's growing. So with all of that, is everything moving to rapid VR authoring? Well, not really, because there are many reasons why you'd still use traditional development for VR. Unlike the traditional authoring, when you're going in and just getting a standard course, you're never going to have somebody actually going in and created by hand. With VR authoring, you're always going to have some of the hand-created, some of the things created in Unity, some of the things created in Unreal. And that's because when you need sensory feedback, when you need very, very detailed placement, detailed visuals, maybe multiple participants in, things like that is going to require some effort. You're going to have to go in and hand code it and put it in. You need detailed kind of information like that. So that will always be around. So what we're going to talk about is different projects that we have here that required whether it required traditional or rapid VR development, and then what led to that development, and then also what did it cost, and how long did it take to actually create it? Kind of give you an idea of what those differences are. First case study is going to be from Immerse Aesthetics. They had a skincare line similar to Botox. They have skincare products similar to Botox, and they needed a way to train on that, their treatment product line. And traditionally, they'd always sent reps out to the individual technicians and actually trained them on it one-on-one, in person. It needed to be done. They were using needles, inserting things like that. But they realized that was not very scalable. They were rolling out to a lot of new areas. They needed a better way to train to get that information out there. So I have an example of their a use of their in VR training. And so in here, you're actually working with a patient. You can manipulate the body parts. They actually have a full menu in which you can look at the different anatomy parts. So you allow people to familiarize themselves with all the musculature. These are generally technicians that are applying this. So they can go through, they can set different opacities, they can set different, look at the different areas, and so they know where they're supposed to hit with the different products. So once they get that in, they say, okay, here are the nerves, here are the areas I need to hit. They can then select a product, and adjust the skin tone in or out on that, so they can do it as if they could see through, or in a more realistic expectation, they can try it over and over again and try it and see if they can get that needle placement just right and the exact amount that's supposed to go in. All the time they can do this. They can manipulate the head. They can actually manipulate the chair going up and down. They can really change anything in the situation that they need to do. So it really gives them a chance to do it. You first try it with all of the things showing that you need to go, and then you gradually overlay the skin tone going up and up until you get a more realistic scenario, because hopefully that's not what the person looked like when they were sitting in your chair. So just something that they would do. It's obvious that this is something that will absolutely require, here you see them adjusting the chair as they're going through. this obviously is going to require something hand-built in Unity to create, right? So it's a large project. It was about an 8-month project, about a little over $300,000 to build, but it was something that required it, and because of the way they were doing it before, sending reps out to every single technician shop, it was still a money saver for them. Very expensive, long time to do, but absolutely required traditional authoring. Next case study we're going to look at is CyberCatch. CyberCatch is a cybersecurity company. So they produce general training on cybersecurity as well as a few cybersecurity products. Really great stuff, but if you're like me and you actually have to take cybersecurity training, it is the most boring training on the planet. Just absolutely not fun to take in any way. And so really kind of hard to get through. You know, you really don't learn a lot from it because you're just trying to get through it as you're going. They realized that. They realized that they really needed to do something to kind of bring that level of training up. They need to engage people. They needed to figure out a way. So they were looking around and they thought about using VR, virtual training for their security training. But you think cybersecurity, how are they going to do that? They actually use a storytelling narrative in which you are a white hat hacker and you have to infiltrate a black hat hacker organization. So you go in there, you infiltrate, you have a friend, her name is Rose, she helps you out, you delve in, and then you actually become the hacker and you learn hacking techniques as you go through. But obviously that trains you on how to defend those hacking techniques as you go through. You actually see the different things, spear phishing emails. It is engrossing. It's an hour long. I've taken it 3 times. It's awesome. So it's a great way to go about it, right? So it gets into a more storytelling narrative. We have an example of that. I just have a video of a small excerpt of that.
Okay, here's the rundown. Nobody uses their real names down here, and we don't talk too much either. We're not here to make friends. Fresh meat like you need to be vetted, so Bobby has put this little hacker trial together. Each floor is a different level of hacker. The better you do, the further down you go. Make it through the first 3 floors, and you're in.
This is just me running the experience.
I'll grab Bob.
Oh, hey, it looks like you made it. Uncle Lenny sent these. Here. We're pretty deep down here, so the signal is a bit sketchy. You have 2 comms. This one is Uncle Lenny, and over here is me. You can call me Hope. Bob has a nose for snitches, so I'll keep him busy while you're online. If I'm not available, I'll switch off my comms like this. But I won't be able to see what Zelda is in charge of the trials, so I can't see what she's getting for you, but I can see what you send back to us though, so I'll do my best to help. Good luck.
Zelda would like a word.
Bobby Bag of Donuts, by the way.
Nice glasses. What's your name? Ah, good. My hacker divas told you no names. But we gotta call you something. Let's go with 4 Eyes. I like that. Follow me.
We follow Bobby into the lair. They actually built 3 levels deep of this lair. The background is all built in Unreal, but they used Scenario VR to create it and put it together and make it interactive.
All right. The only way to vet new hackers is to get them hacking, right? Folks downstairs can do magic with just a little bit of stolen data. If you can't do the same, identify and exploit a good target, well, then there's really no point in keeping you around. Get it? So let's start with some good old spearfishing. See if you've got a good eye. One of my hacker divas is going to send 4 company sites to this computer. I want you to take a look, identify a logical target, and send the divas your pick via computer line input. Do that? Yeah.
We'll just pause that. It's kind of long. So this was kind of a hybrid approach. They realized they wanted a storytelling narrative. The interaction was not too bad. You had to create different things, select different spear phishing emails. You were selecting companies to attack, ways to attack it. So the interaction could easily be done in a rapid tool. But they asked for a 3-story underground hidden lair, which I didn't really have one to film in. So it was all built in Unreal. So the lair is built in Unreal, but the things were rendered as equirectangular videos placed inside the tool and built with a rapid authoring tool. This gave them kind of a hybrid approach. It was kind of nice. Still because it was a hybrid approach and because of all the Unreal work that had to be done, you're still looking at about a 16 to 18 week project. It's about a $100,000 project, but fantastic. It's an engrossing, compelling piece of material really get into it, you can actually enjoy taking training, which is kind of unusual. Okay, our last example that we're going to look at is a third case study, and this was for the NHS, the UK National Health Services. So they needed to train medical students for handling stroke patients. Now, they normally did this via a sim. They would have the students come in, they would run a sim in there in the actual hospital, they would stand by the hospital bed, and they would run through a whole program in which they had a simulation. And they would do this weekly for all the students that would come in. Then the pandemic hit, and they couldn't do that anymore. They were a little busy. So they had to do something quick because they needed doctors more than ever, and so they needed to get these medical students through. They had to figure out a way to create the sim. They contacted a local company in London who provides for them in Scenario VR, and they were able to get them to come in, and they filmed inside of there the same doctors that were doing the sim previously. So they filmed them working on it. All of the actors were actually doctors. They weren't anybody that they had to hire to go in there, and they brought it in, and we have a little clip of that here.
The Sim Centre and the stroke team at University Hospital Leicester NHS Trust asked us to create an interactive filmed 360 VR to enhance their existing training, which was feeling the pinch of high student numbers and COVID restrictions. It quickly became obvious that we would simply follow their lead for the content, while our job was to make sure we captured all the protocols for patient admission through A&E. The scene was shot in a single day in the Leicester Sim Centre, with the stroke team playing themselves and going through exactly the same steps they would follow in any real-life admission. Filming in 360 allowed us to create that feeling of being in the midst of the action. Just as in in-person sim training, or if we were watching a real-life admission, we get to see the action played out all around us. By using Scenario VR, we can also see detailed close-up footage and hear interviews with the team in a series of interactive pop-ups. We have to pay attention, answer questions, and fill out a score sheet, and this is where the added value really comes in. Of course, the other great thing about having a filmed resource is that it can be seen at any time by anybody as pre-session learning, post-session affirmation, or simply checking what needs to be done if in doubt. This type of course can be replicated for other specialities and other workplaces. It's absorbing, realistic, informative, challenging and accessible, costing far less than CGI-based VR and can be completed in days, not months.
So some of the keys they mentioned in there, but very important. They filmed it in one day. They went in and filmed it in one day, just as the pandemic was setting in. They did the editing in a few days, I think it was 4 or 5 days, and they put it into Scenario VR, made it interactive in about another 5 days. They built it, turned it around, and got it back in. It was in use by the hospital within 2 weeks of turning it on, and it cost $10,000 to create. So that's the kind of difference you get when you can actually do something rapid. So there's a lot of things that you can produce through rapid learning that you wouldn't imagine. First of all, you probably don't have to ever hire actors. Guess what? Most of your people want to be actors. They'll love to get in there. Let them be the actors. Let them go in, let them try it. You'd be surprised how many people want to go in and try it. So it's a great way to produce training. So I hope you've learned something about rapid versus traditional thing, maybe gives you ideas about maybe how you could use it within your organization. Thank you very much.